December 1972, Apollo 17 commander Eugene Cernan and geologist Harrison Schmitt were exploring the Taurus-Littrow Valley when something happened that NASA has spent 50 years trying to hide. On their second moonwalk, Schmitt radioed mission control about discovering something that reflected light along a crater rim. What followed next defies explanation. For 11 minutes, all communication between the lunar surface and Houston went completely silent. This wasn't a technical malfunction or routine equipment check. This was a deliberate communications blackout during one of the most expensive and closely monitored operations in human history. When audio restoration specialists later recovered fragments of the missing transmission, they found Schmidt's voice saying the words that would change everything. He described finding something artificial, something with geometric properties that couldn't possibly be natural formations. The photographic evidence from that moonwalk tells an equally disturbing story. Schmitt captured over 400 images during their surface operations, but only 387 appear in NASA's official archives. Those missing 13 frames correspond exactly to the timing of the communications blackout. NASA claims the missing photographs were overexposed and unusable, yet every other overexposed image from Apollo missions was still preserved in their archives. The systematic removal of evidence suggests something far more significant than damaged film. Commander Cernan maintained absolute silence about the incident for nearly 4 decades. In 2010, 3 years before his death, he finally spoke about what they encountered. His words were carefully chosen, but chilling in their implications. He acknowledged seeing things that were matters of national security, experiences bound by oaths that he kept until his dying day. The universe, he warned, was full of surprises that were closer to home than anyone realized. Dr. Harrison Schmitt has been even more circumspect about their discoveries. He makes only brief references to unusual geological formations that defied conventional scientific explanation, but consistently refuses to provide details. Former NASA employees revealed that Schmitt underwent an unusually lengthy debriefing process lasting over 2 weeks in complete isolation, far exceeding the standard 3-day protocol used for returning astronauts. The cover-up extended beyond missing photographs and altered transcripts. In 1976, a mysterious fire destroyed the only copies of raw footage from Apollo 17 surface operations. This fire occurred in a climate-controlled, fire-suppressed vault that had operated without incident for over a decade. The destroyed footage was never mentioned in official reports, and the timing of its destruction raises serious questions about what those unedited reels might have contained. Moving from the lunar surface to Earth's orbit, we encounter the extraordinary testimony of Soviet cosmonauts aboard Salyut 7 space station in July 1984. 3 experienced space travelers, Leonid Kizim, Vladimir Solovyov, and Oleg Atkov, witnessed something that Soviet authorities immediately classified at the highest levels. Their space station was suddenly bathed in brilliant orange light, and looking through the viewports, they observed 7 massive humanoid figures floating outside their spacecraft. These weren't small objects or distant phenomena that could be dismissed as space debris or optical illusions. The entities appeared to be over 80 feet tall, displaying wings and glowing halos around their heads. They kept perfect pace with the space station for more than 10 minutes, moving with obvious intelligence and purpose, before gradually fading from view. The cosmonauts immediately reported the sighting to Mission Control and were ordered to undergo immediate psychiatric evaluation. The official Soviet position was absolute denial. No such incident had occurred, and any discussion of the matter would be considered a violation of state security. But 12 days later, 3 additional cosmonauts arrived at Salyut 7, bringing the crew complement to 6. On their second day aboard the station, all 6 crew members witnessed the same phenomenon simultaneously. This time, they managed to capture photographic evidence using the station's cameras before the entities disappeared. When the mission concluded, All 6 cosmonauts were subjected to intensive debriefing by both military intelligence and KGB personnel. The photographs were immediately classified as top secret, and the crew members were explicitly warned that discussing the incident would result in prosecution for revealing state secrets. The consistency of their accounts and the official response suggests something far more significant than mass hallucination or equipment malfunction. After the Soviet Union's collapse, Vladimir Solovyov broke his decades of silence. His testimony was unequivocal and disturbing. All 6 crew members had witnessed the same entities, and they were trained military observers who knew the difference between reality and hallucination. What they observed was physical, real, and impossible to explain using conventional understanding of what exists in Earth's orbital environment. The classified investigation that followed proposed theories ranging from plasma-based life forms to interdimensional entities to advanced surveillance technology from unknown sources. None of these explanations could adequately account for the beings' enormous size, intelligent behavior, or the specific environmental conditions under which they appeared. The photographic evidence reportedly showed massive, luminous forms that displayed characteristics of both physical matter and pure energy, moving with purpose and adjusting their positions to remain visible through the station's observation windows. Perhaps most disturbing is that Salyut 7 wasn't an isolated incident. Cosmonauts from earlier Salyut missions and later Mir operations have quietly confirmed similar encounters that were never officially acknowledged. The pattern suggests regular contact between Soviet space operations and these mysterious entities. Contact that was systematically documented and suppressed by authorities who clearly understood the profound implications of such encounters. The testimony from these early cases establishes a foundation of credible witnesses and institutional cover-ups that extends across different space agencies and political systems. What emerges is a clear pattern of suppression that transcends national boundaries and Cold War rivalries. Both American and Soviet space programs appear to have encountered phenomena that challenged fundamental assumptions about Earth's place in the cosmos, and both responded with identical strategies of classification and silence. These weren't random occurrences or isolated misidentifications. These were systematic encounters with something that displayed intelligence, technology, and capabilities that exceeded anything in humanity's arsenal. The response from both superpowers suggests they understood exactly what their astronauts and cosmonauts were witnessing, and they made the calculated decision that such knowledge was too dangerous for public consumption. The evidence from Apollo 17 and Salyut 7 represents just the beginning of a pattern that continues to this day. As we move forward through the decades of human space exploration, the encounters become more frequent, more detailed, and more impossible to dismiss. The astronauts who witnessed these events were bound by oaths of secrecy that extended beyond their careers and often to their graves, but some have chosen to break their silence with deathbed confessions and carefully worded testimonies that reveal the truth about what humanity has been encountering in the final frontier. Tearing in the final frontier. What happened next in the timeline of suppressed space encounters brings us to one of America's most decorated test pilots and astronauts. Major Gordon Cooper was among the original Mercury 7, a man whose reputation for precision and reliability made his eventual revelations all the more shocking. Throughout his career, Cooper had hinted at knowledge of extraordinary phenomena, but it wasn't until his final days in 2004 that he revealed the full scope of what he had witnessed during his time as both a test pilot and astronaut. The most significant incident occurred years before Cooper ever left Earth's atmosphere. In 1957, while managing aircraft flight testing operations at Edwards Air Force Base, Cooper and his team captured something on high-quality military film that would haunt him for the rest of his life. A metallic, disc-shaped craft descended onto the dry lake bed, extended what appeared to be landing gear, settled onto the surface, then lifted off and accelerated away at speeds that defied every known principle of aeronautics. Cooper personally developed the film footage and examined it frame by frame. The object was clearly artificial, displaying structural features and performing maneuvers that exceeded the capabilities of any known aircraft. Following standard military protocol, he immediately forwarded the film to Washington. The footage was never returned, and Cooper received explicit orders never to discuss what he had witnessed. For decades, he maintained his silence, but the memory of that impossible craft never left him. During his Mercury Atlas 9 mission in May 1963, Cooper encountered something even more disturbing. On his final orbit around Earth, he observed a green glowing object approaching his capsule. The unknown craft paced his spacecraft for several minutes, matching his orbital velocity with mathematical precision. Ground tracking radar at Moochea, Australia confirmed the object's presence, verifying that Cooper wasn't experiencing hallucinations or equipment malfunction. When Cooper's capsule splashed down in the Pacific, he was immediately informed that his report about the encounter wouldn't appear in the official mission transcript. The radar data from Australia was classified, and personnel at the tracking station were instructed to never discuss what they had observed. The systematic suppression of evidence followed the same pattern established in earlier cases, suggesting coordinated protocols for handling such encounters. In his final interview, conducted just days before his death from Parkinson's disease, Cooper delivered testimony that shattered the official narrative about humanity's ignorance of extraterrestrial phenomena. He revealed that radar installations across the United States routinely detected objects of unknown form and composition, tracking craft that displayed flight characteristics impossible for conventional technology. Thousands of witness reports and supporting documents existed, but institutional policies ensured they never reached public attention. Cooper's most damaging revelation concerned his later work as a consultant to the United Nations. He attempted to establish an international working group to investigate these phenomena systematically, believing that global cooperation might finally bring truth to light. His proposal was blocked by American officials who told him directly that such investigation would reveal information the public wasn't ready to know. The admission confirmed that suppression of evidence wasn't accidental oversight, but deliberate policy implemented at the highest levels of government. Perhaps most disturbing was Cooper's claim about standard astronaut debriefing procedures. He revealed that returning space travelers were routinely questioned about unusual observations, and that established protocols ensured such reports never reached public scrutiny. The systematic nature of this suppression suggested that encounters with unexplained phenomena weren't rare exceptions, but regular occurrences that required constant management and concealment. The pattern of witness intimidation and evidence suppression becomes even more apparent when examining the case of astronaut James McDivitt during the Gemini 4 mission in June 1965. McDivitt was piloting his spacecraft when he observed an object with distinctive structural features approaching his capsule. He described it as cylindrical, with pronounced protrusions, unlike any known satellite or spacecraft design. The object was close enough to observe structural details and appeared to be under intelligent control. McDivitt immediately grabbed his camera and captured photographic evidence before the object maneuvered away from his spacecraft. His radio transmission was clear and unambiguous, reporting an unidentified artificial object in close proximity to Gemini 4. When McDivitt returned to Earth, his debriefing lasted significantly longer than standard protocol and included intelligence officers who weren't normally present for astronaut interviews. The photographs McDivitt captured were immediately classified upon his return. When eventually released to the public, NASA claimed they showed nothing but lens flares and optical effects. McDivitt consistently rejected this explanation, maintaining throughout his life that he had photographed a structured craft, exhibiting intelligent control. His refusal to accept the official explanation cost him professionally, but he never wavered in his account of what he had witnessed. Film technicians within NASA later leaked information suggesting that McDivitt's original photographs clearly showed a cylindrical object with distinct structural features. but these images were never included in the officially released collection. The systematic alteration of evidence followed the same pattern seen in previous cases, confirming that institutional suppression of astronaut testimony was standard operating procedure rather than isolated incident. McDivot's case demonstrates the personal cost of refusing to conform to official narratives. Unlike other astronauts who eventually softened their accounts under pressure, McDivot maintained his position until his death in 2022. He consistently questioned why his photographs were classified and then released in altered form, arguing that the systematic suppression of evidence proved the significance of what he had encountered. The escalation of these encounters becomes apparent when examining incidents aboard the International Space Station, where advanced monitoring systems and global cooperation should theoretically make cover-ups more difficult. In 2015, Commander Scott Kelly was 6 months into his year-long mission when something occurred that triggered what NASA internally designates as the Blackout Protocol, an emergency procedure so classified that its existence wasn't confirmed until Freedom of Information Act requests forced the release of heavily redacted documents. The incident began during a routine live stream from the ISS to NASA's public feed. Kelly and Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko were conducting a tour of the station when Kelly suddenly stopped speaking mid-sentence, staring at something outside the observation window. His exact words before the feed cut were carefully documented by viewers who were recording the stream. He reported multiple objects holding position relative to the station, objects that weren't listed on any manifest of scheduled spacecraft or debris. The live feed terminated immediately, and NASA's Public Affairs Office claimed it was a routine technical glitch. However, the communications blackout lasted over 3 hours, unprecedented for the ISS's normally reliable systems. When transmissions resumed, neither Kelly nor any crew member mentioned the sighting, and the station's external cameras had been repositioned away from the area where Kelly had been looking. Leaked communications and testimony from mission control personnel later revealed what happened during those 3 hours of silence. Kelly reported observing multiple disc-shaped objects maintaining precise formation near the station. The objects were metallic, reflected sunlight, and moved with obvious coordination and purpose. Mission Control immediately activated the Blackout Protocol, which involved cutting all public feeds, switching to encrypted military channels, alerting NORAD and Space Command, and conducting immediate threat assessment. During the blackout, Kelly and his crew documented everything they observed while maintaining continuous communication with Mission Control through secure channels. The station's external cameras were remotely operated to record the objects from multiple angles. This footage exists, but remains classified under national security provisions that prevent its release to researchers or the public. When Kelly returned to Earth in March 2016, his debriefing lasted over 2 weeks, far exceeding standard protocols for returning astronauts. His brother Mark Kelly, also an astronaut and currently a United States Senator, was present for some of these sessions and has consistently refused to discuss what was revealed. The extended debriefing suggests that what Scott Kelly observed was considered significant enough to warrant the highest levels of government attention. The leaked documents reveal that the Blackout Protocol has been activated at least 7 times since 2010, each incident involving ISS crew members observing objects that exhibit controlled flight characteristics. Public feeds are immediately terminated. Crew members communicate only through encrypted channels, and returning astronauts undergo extensive classified debriefings that sometimes last weeks rather than the standard few days. These cases establish a clear pattern of systematic suppression that spans decades and crosses national boundaries. From the lunar surface to Earth orbit, from American astronauts to Soviet cosmonauts, trained observers have consistently encountered phenomena that challenge our understanding of what exists beyond our atmosphere. The institutional response has been equally consistent, involving immediate classification of evidence, extended debriefings of witnesses, and explicit warnings about discussing observations publicly. The evidence suggests that these encounters aren't rare anomalies, but regular occurrences that require constant management by authorities who understand their significance. The systematic nature of the cover-up indicates that someone at the highest levels of government has made the calculated decision that humanity isn't ready for the truth about what's really happening in space. The astronauts who've broken their silence paint a picture of surveillance and monitoring that extends far beyond what most people imagine. These aren't isolated incidents happening to confused observers. These are systematic encounters involving the most highly trained individuals humanity has ever sent into space. And their testimonies reveal a disturbing truth about what's watching us from the darkness beyond our world. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from astronaut Buzz Aldrin, the second human to set foot on the lunar surface. In 2018, Aldrin underwent a polygraph examination administered by the Institute of Bioacoustic Biology, and the results shattered the carefully constructed narrative he had maintained for nearly 50 years. When asked detailed questions about encounters during the Apollo 11 mission, the polygraph indicated complete truthfulness in responses that contradicted his public statements. Aldrin's public account had always described their UFO encounter as likely being a detached spacecraft panel catching sunlight. But under polygraph examination, his responses painted a very different picture. He truthfully confirmed that the object exhibited controlled flight characteristics, appeared to be observing their spacecraft, and was definitely not a piece of debris or equipment malfunction. The precision instruments detected no deception when Aldrin stated his belief that the object was under intelligent control. Even more significant was Aldrin's truthful confirmation that NASA had instructed him never to discuss the full details of their encounter. When asked if there were classified aspects of Apollo missions that remained hidden for national security reasons, his affirmative response showed complete honesty. Most shocking of all was his truthful answer when asked if he had seen evidence on the moon suggesting previous visitation by non-human intelligence. The polygraph registered no deception when he answered yes. The polygraph administrator noted that Aldrin displayed significant stress responses when discussing these topics, consistent with someone revealing information they had kept secret for decades. The report concluded that Aldrin appeared to be truthfully recounting experiences he had been prevented from discussing openly, suggesting a level of institutional control over astronaut testimony that extends far beyond normal security protocols. This pattern of enforced silence becomes even more disturbing when examining what happened to other Apollo astronauts who attempted to share their experiences. Alan Bean, the fourth person to walk on the moon, made cryptic references to observations that couldn't be discussed publicly. In a 2015 interview, he posed a haunting question that revealed the depth of the suppression. If astronauts had seen something truly extraordinary during lunar missions, would they be allowed to tell the public? That question, he suggested, was what people should really be asking. Bean died in 2018 without ever elaborating on his statement, taking whatever secrets he possessed to his grave. The fact that even decades after their missions, these decorated heroes felt unable to speak freely about their experiences suggests a level of institutional control that most people would find difficult to believe. These weren't men prone to fantasy or deception. They were military test pilots and scientists who had devoted their lives to expanding human knowledge. Yet something they encountered in space was deemed too dangerous for public consumption. The international nature of this suppression becomes apparent when examining testimony from the former Soviet space program. In 2019, a former mission control engineer named Viktor Afanasyev provided explosive testimony about systematic cover-ups of cosmonaut encounters with unexplained phenomena. Afanasyev claimed he had maintained secret archives of classified incident reports detailing dozens of encounters between Soviet spacecraft and objects of unknown origin. According to Afanasyev, the Soviet space program operated under a classified protocol known as Special Event Documentation that required cosmonauts to report any observations of unexplained phenomena through secure channels separate from normal mission communications. These reports were never included in official mission logs and were maintained in files accessible only to personnel vetted by the KGB. The systematic nature of this documentation suggests that encounters were frequent enough to require established procedures for handling and suppressing the information. Afanasyev's testimony included specific incidents that painted a picture of regular contact between Soviet spacecraft and intelligently controlled objects. A 1978 Soyuz mission involved cosmonaut Vladimir Kovalyonok reporting that a sphere of light approached his spacecraft, paced it for several minutes, then accelerated away at impossible speed. Kovalyonok's classified report described the object as intelligently controlled and noted that it seemed to be scanning or examining his capsule with obvious purpose and intent. During the 1980s, Afanasyev claimed encounters became more frequent and more sophisticated. Multiple Salyut and Mir missions reported objects that matched their orbital velocity, maintained position near the stations for extended periods, and displayed flight characteristics that exceeded any known technology. In one particularly disturbing incident from 1982, an object reportedly interfaced with a Soyuz spacecraft's computer systems, causing temporary malfunctions that resolved immediately when the object departed. Most chilling was Afanasyev's claim that at least 2 cosmonauts had experienced close encounters during spacewalks. In 1991, a cosmonaut reported seeing a large disc-shaped craft emerge from Earth's shadow while he was outside the Mir space station. The object was close enough that he could observe surface details, including what appeared to be ports or windows, before it moved away. The incident was never mentioned in official reports, and the cosmonaut was immediately recalled inside and underwent psychological evaluation. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Afanasyev said the Special Event Documentation Archive was divided among different agencies. Some files went to Roscosmos, others to Russian intelligence services, and some were allegedly destroyed to prevent their contents from becoming public. The systematic distribution and destruction of evidence suggests that even during the chaos of political collapse, maintaining secrecy about these encounters remained a priority for Russian authorities. The consistency of suppression across different political systems and time periods suggests coordination at levels that transcend national boundaries. Both American and Soviet space programs appear to have encountered the same phenomena and responded with identical strategies of classification and silence. This coordination implies that whatever astronauts and cosmonauts have been witnessing represents a challenge significant enough to override Cold War rivalries and maintain unified suppression policies. The modern era of space exploration has brought new technologies and international cooperation, but the patterns of suppression have only intensified. The 2022 incident aboard the International Space Station resulted in the longest communications blackout in the station's history, lasting over 7 hours without any public updates from NASA or Roscosmos. When communications resumed, both agencies claimed it was routine software maintenance, but multiple inconsistencies suggest something far more significant occurred. The incident began during what should have been a routine cargo docking procedure. Shortly after a Progress supply vehicle completed its approach, all public communications ceased. NASA's live feeds went dark, social media updates stopped, and even automated data streams that researchers use to monitor station operations were interrupted. The complete information blackout was unprecedented and suggested activation of emergency protocols designed for the most serious situations. What emerged through carefully worded statements and leaked information indicates that something was detected approaching the station during the docking operation. Multiple crew members observed the object, which appeared on tracking systems but didn't correspond to any known satellite or debris. According to sources within the space community, the object maintained position relative to the ISS for several hours, exhibiting controlled flight characteristics that ruled out natural phenomena or space junk. The international cooperation triggered by this incident was remarkable, given the severe tensions between Russia and the United States due to the conflict in Ukraine. Despite these political realities, both space agencies coordinated their responses seamlessly, suggesting pre-established protocols that override geopolitical conflicts when dealing with these specific types of encounters. The fact that hostile nations could instantly unite in response to this incident reveals the priority placed on maintaining secrecy about such phenomena. Mission Commander Thomas Marshburn never spoke publicly about what happened that day. His debriefing upon returning to Earth in May 2022 reportedly lasted over 3 weeks, far exceeding the standard protocol for returning astronauts. Despite being in excellent health at the peak of his career, Marshburn retired from NASA shortly after his return, suggesting that his experiences aboard the station had profoundly affected his willingness to continue space operations. Amateur satellite trackers and radio enthusiasts detected anomalies consistent with the timing of the blackout. Several reported unusual encrypted communications on frequencies typically reserved for classified military space operations, suggesting coordination between US Space Command, Russian Space Forces, and other international agencies. The activation of military communication channels during what was supposedly a routine software update reveals the true nature of what was occurring aboard the station. Perhaps most telling is what happened in the months following the incident. Multiple astronauts from various space agencies were quietly rotated off the ISS ahead of their scheduled return dates, their replacements undergoing additional training that wasn't part of standard protocols. One source described this additional preparation as briefing for scenarios that aren't in the manual, suggesting that future crew members were being prepared for encounters similar to what had occurred in March. In August 2022, 5 months after the incident, NASA quietly updated its policies regarding astronaut communications about non-standard observations. The new guidelines explicitly state that crew members must route all reports of unidentified objects or phenomena through classified channels and are prohibited from discussing such observations publicly without specific authorization. The policy change confirms that encounters with unexplained phenomena are considered routine enough to require formal procedures for handling astronaut testimony. These recent incidents demonstrate that the suppression of astronaut testimony hasn't diminished with time or technological advancement. If anything, the protocols for maintaining secrecy have become more sophisticated and comprehensive. The international cooperation in suppressing information suggests that space agencies worldwide have reached consensus about the need to prevent public knowledge of what's really happening beyond Earth's atmosphere. The evidence from 6 decades of human space exploration paints a disturbing picture of systematic deception maintained at the highest levels of government and international space agencies. From the earliest Mercury missions to the modern International Space Station, astronauts have consistently encountered phenomena that challenge our understanding of what exists in space. Their testimonies reveal not only the reality of these encounters, but also the extraordinary lengths to which institutions will go to prevent public knowledge of them. The pattern is undeniable. Highly trained observers witness extraordinary phenomena, report them through official channels, then face immediate pressure to remain silent. Their evidence is classified or destroyed, their testimonies are altered or suppressed, and their careers often suffer mysterious setbacks. The consistency of this response across different space agencies, political systems, and time periods suggests something far more significant than isolated incidents or bureaucratic incompetence. Erratic incompetence. What makes these revelations even more chilling is the personal cost paid by those who dared to speak truth. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the 6th human to walk on the lunar surface during Apollo 14, spent his final years systematically breaking the silence that had bound him for decades. Mitchell possessed credentials that made his testimony impossible to dismiss. An MIT doctorate in aeronautics, a distinguished military career, and direct experience with lunar exploration gave him unique authority when he finally decided the public deserved answers. Mitchell's transformation from compliant astronaut to vocal whistleblower began during his return journey from the Moon in 1971. During the 3-day transit back to Earth, he experienced what he described as a profound shift in consciousness, a moment of clarity that revealed the interconnected nature of reality itself. This experience drove him to spend decades researching consciousness, quantum physics, and phenomena that mainstream science refused to acknowledge. But it was his contact with government insiders and military witnesses that led him to the most disturbing conclusions about humanity's place in the cosmos. Through carefully cultivated relationships within intelligence and defense communities, Mitchell gained access to information that confirmed his growing suspicions. In 2008, during a radio interview that sent shockwaves through both NASA and military establishments, Mitchell made statements that shattered official denials about extraterrestrial contact. His testimony was direct and uncompromising. Humanity had been visited by beings from elsewhere in the universe, and this contact had been systematically concealed by government agencies for over 6 decades. The 1947 Roswell incident wasn't weather balloon debris or experimental aircraft. It was the recovery of crashed extraterrestrial technology and biological entities, leading to reverse engineering programs that had operated in complete secrecy for generations. Most significantly, Mitchell revealed that astronauts had been warned their space activities were being monitored by intelligences that possessed technology far beyond human capabilities. The surveillance wasn't passive observation, but active interference in human space operations. Some missions had encountered direct intervention from these entities, experiences that were immediately classified at levels exceeding nuclear weapons security protocols. NASA's response to Mitchell's revelations was swift and brutal. The agency issued public statements distancing itself from his claims, emphasizing that he spoke only for himself and not as a representative of America's space program. Behind the scenes, according to sources close to Mitchell, he faced intense pressure from former colleagues and government officials to retract his statements and return to the silence that had protected these secrets for so long. Mitchell refused to back down. In 2015, the year before his death, he participated in a classified briefing for select members of Congress. Details of that session remain confidential, but attendees reported that Mitchell presented documentary evidence, witness testimony, and technical data supporting his extraordinary claims. He urged congressional representatives to investigate what he called the most significant cover-up in human history, arguing that continued secrecy endangered humanity's future. His warnings about the implications of ongoing concealment were prophetic. Mitchell argued that humanity needed preparation for eventual open contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, and that current policies of denial and ridicule created dangerous vulnerabilities. The suppression of truth, he maintained, left civilization unprepared for realities that would eventually become impossible to hide. Perhaps most disturbing was Mitchell's revelation about protocols governing astronaut behavior. He disclosed that space travelers underwent extensive briefings about phenomena they might encounter and strict guidelines about what could be discussed publicly. Violations of these protocols carried severe consequences, including loss of pension benefits, security clearance revocation, and potential prosecution under espionage laws. Dr. Edgar Mitchell died on February 4, 2016, having spent his final years attempting to prepare humanity for truths that powerful institutions wanted to keep buried. His legacy remains controversial, with establishment scientists dismissing his claims as delusions, while others view him as a courageous truth-teller who sacrificed his reputation for the greater good. The suppression extends beyond individual testimonies to systematic alteration of evidence itself. The 1996 Space Shuttle Columbia tether incident provides one of the most compelling examples of how extraordinary footage gets explained away through official channels. During the deployment of a 12-mile-long conducting tether designed to generate electricity through interaction with Earth's magnetic field, the cable unexpectedly broke and drifted away from the shuttle. What happened next was captured by NASA's cameras and broadcast live to thousands of viewers before officials realized the significance of what was being recorded. The footage shows the tumbling tether moving away from Columbia, but surrounding the cable are dozens, possibly hundreds, of luminous disc-shaped objects. Using the tether's known length for scale, the objects appear to be several miles in diameter, moving with obvious intelligence and coordination. The astronauts who dared to speak have given us glimpses of a reality far stranger than we've been allowed to imagine. From lunar surfaces to orbital stations, from Mercury capsules to the International Space Station, these trained observers witnessed phenomena that challenged everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. Their testimonies reveal not just encounters with the impossible, but a coordinated effort to keep humanity in the dark about what's really happening beyond our atmosphere. The evidence is overwhelming, the pattern undeniable, and the implications staggering. Perhaps it's time we stopped accepting official explanations and started demanding the truth about what our bravest explorers have been seeing in the final frontier.